The road into the village was dusty and narrow, lined with fields that stretched under the fading sun. The tourist walked slowly, his backpack heavy on his shoulders, though the real weight he carried was not in cloth or metal, but in his chest. He had been traveling for months, maybe years, moving from one country to the next, collecting photographs and fleeting moments of beauty. Yet, no matter how many places he visited, he always felt the same hollow space inside him, as though he were chasing something he could never catch. When he arrived at the village, children gathered at a distance, curious but cautious. Their clothes were simple, their faces bright, yet their play seemed muted. They chased each other on dusty ground, running past stones and uneven paths, their laughter mixed with the sound of hardship. He noticed how they had no real space for joy, no safe place to be children. It struck him in a way he could not ignore. He found lodging with a kind family who offered him a mat to sleep on and a meal of rice and vegetables. As he ate, he listened to the sounds of the evening pots clanging, voices calling across small courtyards, the faint giggles of children still awake. He thought about how, in all his travels, he had never paused long enough to truly belong anywhere. He was always moving, always searching. Yet here, in this quiet place, something pulled at him differently, asking him to stay just a little longer. At night, lying under the thatched roof, he looked at the cracked beams above him and wondered why he felt so restless. He had seen cities where lights never faded and seas that stretched farther than the eye could see, but none of those memories felt complete. He thought of the children outside, running barefoot over sharp stones, their small hands carrying nothing but dust. The image stayed with him, whispering in his mind, stirring something that had long been quiet in his heart. By morning, he walked through the village again, this time slower. He passed by women carrying water, men repairing fences, and children playing in the same unsafe space. A group of them laughed when he waved, but when one stumbled and scraped his knee against a rock, the laughter faded into tears. The tourist felt his chest tighten as he watched. In that moment, for the first time in all his journeys, he asked himself if maybe he could do more than just watch the world pass by. The morning was cool when he met the old man. The villager sat beneath a tree near the center of the village, his hands rough from years of labor, his face etched with deep lines that carried stories of time. The tourist greeted him with a smile, and though they shared only a few words in broken phrases, there was an understanding in the silence between them. The old man pointed toward the children, who were once again running in the dirt, their bare feet kicking up dust. He said slowly, in words the tourist barely grasped, that the children deserved more than stones for their playground. The tourist nodded, the thought sinking into him like a seed planted in fertile ground. He had never built anything in his life. His hands had held cameras, maps, and tickets, but never wood or tools. Yet the more he thought about it, the stronger the idea became. Maybe he could give them something, a gift, not of money or passing charity, but of effort and care. He began gathering what he could. The villagers watched with curiosity, some with skepticism. They had seen travelers come and go, people who brought stories or donations, but never stayed long enough to know their names. But this man carried planks of wood on his shoulders, his clothes soaked with sweat, his face marked with determination. He asked for help through gestures, and slowly, a few young men joined him. Children followed at a distance, their eyes wide with wonder, as though trying to understand why this stranger was working so hard for them. The work was not easy. The ground was uneven, the tools few, and the sun burned relentlessly on their backs. At times, the tourist's hands blistered and his arms trembled from exhaustion. At night, he lay awake, wondering if it mattered. He thought of the money he had saved for travel, the comforts he had left behind, and he questioned whether a small playground could ever mean anything lasting. Doubt pressed on him like a heavy shadow. But each morning, when he saw the children waiting at the edge of the worksite, their faces lit with cautious hope, something inside him stirred. They laughed when he stumbled, clapped when he lifted a beam, and even brought him small stones and sticks, as though helping in their own way. The old man returned often, watching quietly, and once he placed a hand on the tourist's shoulder, saying only one word, kindness. The tourist did not need translation. He understood, and so he pressed on, his sweat mingling with dust, his heart slowly realizing that what he was building was not just wood and rope, but a bridge between himself and a community that had once been strangers. The final days of work were the hardest. His muscles ached, and his hands bore cuts that stung each time he lifted another piece of wood. Yet the sight of the half-finished playground kept him moving. A swing frame stood tall against the horizon. A small slide was taking shape, and a seesaw balanced unsteadily on its base. It was simple by any standard, but in the eyes of the children who watched, it was already magic. One afternoon, as he hammered the last nails into the swing set, he felt the weight of every doubt he had carried since arriving. He had questioned his worth, his purpose, his place in a world that often felt too wide for him to belong. But here, with children waiting eagerly for their turn on the unfinished swing, those doubts began to soften. For the first time, he saw the possibility that meaning wasn't something distant to be searched for across borders. Perhaps it could be created with one's own hands, right where one stood. When the playground was finally ready, word spread quickly. Families gathered, the elderly man among them, his face glowing with quiet pride. The children ran forward, their laughter filling the air like music. They climbed, swung, and tumbled with joy, their squeals echoing through the village. Mothers smiled through tears, fathers clapped their hands, and the old man bowed slightly toward the tourist, as though acknowledging not just the structure but the heart that had built it. The tourist stood back, his clothes still covered in dust, his body weary. Yet, as he watched the children laugh and play, tears welled in his own eyes. This was not a fleeting photograph to be stored on a screen, not a memory that would fade with the passing of time. It was real, living joy. It was proof that even a stranger could leave behind something lasting, something that would ripple through lives long after he was gone. For the villagers, the playground was more than wood and nails. It was a sign that kindness could arrive from unexpected places, that even those who wander without roots can bring gifts of love. For the tourist, it was the answer he had been chasing across countless miles. He finally understood that purpose is not found in distant landscapes, but in the lives we touch with sincerity. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold, the children's laughter carried on the wind. The tourist closed his eyes for a moment, breathing it in, knowing this was the moment he had been searching for all along. Life has a way of reminding us that meaning is not always hidden in grand adventures or distant horizons. Sometimes, it is found in the simple joy of a child's laughter, in the sweat poured into creating something that outlives our presence. The tourist who built a playground discovered that purpose is born the moment we choose to give, not to take. And perhaps that is the quiet truth for all of us. Our lives matter most when they touch another's heart. If this story moved you, consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing for more tales of kindness.